Welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited you are here. It's hard to believe that we started this journey summer of 2024, and here we are now halfway, a little more than halfway through quarter one of 2025. And today I really wanted to come on and talk with you about something that is really an essence of what I talk about. I've kind of woven pieces of it in. It's come up in several different episodes and as parts of the episode, but I really want to focus on and emphasize this concept that prioritizing you, the leader, is the key to business growth. Leading from the inside out is the key to business growth. Prioritizing yourself is not a luxury, but actually a necessity for your leadership and business. And so I just kind of want to start with this concept of leadership. If you don't know some of my story and background, my final gig in higher ed was I spent several years as the assistant director of leadership programs at a center for leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And prior to that, in earlier years, I helped build several different versions of leadership academies, performance academies in athletic departments. And have always just really been drawn to this idea of leadership, team culture, it's like a facet of the mindset, people side of whether that's athletics, organizations, what have you. And maybe that's my roots in social work. I don't know, but it's just always been something I've been drawn to. And in recent years in my business, I've kind of shied away from using that language, much like I was shying away from using the language of business coach or whatever that looks like. And I think it's because of how we define what leadership is. So going back to that center that I worked at, when I worked at that center, I taught, one of the courses that I taught was leadership theory, kind of like a leadership 101, introduction to leadership. And the first class every semester, I always kicked off with an exercise having the students define what leadership was. And almost every time they identified descriptive attributes of leaders that they think of, right? Someone in authority, someone in power, someone in charge, someone who is charismatic, an extrovert, just different descriptors like that. And the reality is, leadership is this kind of larger entity. And it's actually made up of it's a social construct because it relies on having a leader. It relies on having followers. And it also relies on what's going on in the given situation, right? So almost like this three-part Venn diagram that overlaps. And at the same time, as in society, because we've identified leadership just as the leaders, we've also bought into this idea that leadership is just about pushing through, powering through, running the organization, being the one making the decisions, all the things. And we kind of buy into this idea that we have to self-sacrifice to get to the top, right? We have this idea that leadership is about being on the top. But if we step back and look at that kind of Venn diagram that I talked about as a social construct, we recognize that the leader is one part of the puzzle, and it's often one part of the puzzle that's getting neglected. But if that area is getting neglected, it ripples out into the other areas. It ripples out into not great team dynamics, not great team culture, maybe lack of buy-in, lack of motivation. It ripples out into bottom line things. If we're talking in the business world, like our numbers, right? And a lot of that comes from this idea that we are self-sacrificing and not taking care of you, the person, as the leader, which then leads to burnout, or leads to overworking, leads to just all these ripple out effects that impacts all the different pieces of your team, your business, all the things. And so that's really kind of what I want to hone in on in this particular episode, really around why and how prioritizing you is the key to that business growth. So we've talked about some kind of like theoretical abstract stuff a little bit. I want you to like pause and think about your leadership, whether you consider yourself a leader or not. If you're in business, if you are a parent, if you are in community organizations, in some way or another, you are taking on leadership roles. And that means that your energy, your mindset, and your well-being directly impact your team, your clients, your business results, all the things. So I want you to pause and think about a time where you were self-sacrificing and not taking care of your needs and what may have rippled out from that. I see it a lot with the clients that I work with, and it's a pattern that shows up both in their businesses and it shows up in their relationships. A lot of the work, the things that comes up in the work I do with my clients is in partner relationships, because it's around leaders. These clients that I work with are leaders who constantly self-sacrifice to get to that goal because they've bought into that idea that just pushing through, just powering through, just doing the thing is the answer. They don't necessarily trust other people to get the work done, so they control the situation really tightly and go, do. I'm the only one that can do this, but then get frustrated and resentful when other people aren't reading their minds, aren't supporting them in the way they want to be supported, all those pieces. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients is around actually identifying what your needs are, identifying places that you are struggling and places where you are actually the barrier or the cog in the wheel. And then we start to practice shifting those things. So going to look at identifying what your needs are. That's where we use tools. You see me online talking about play and creativity and all those pieces. That's where we lean into tools there to discover what that is. So many of my clients don't even know what their needs are, what they enjoy, because they've just been on this path of go, push, do. I've got big goals, big dreams, big visions. So going through a process of trying new things, playing with new things, getting clear on what it is that they need in the day-to-day, asking themselves. 9 out of 10 of my clients when I say, what do you need? They don't know the answer, and it's because they've never actually sat down and asked themselves what they need in a given moment. It's a prompt I give my clients often when they are hitting roadblocks. What do I need in this moment to make this easier, feel better, be more enjoyable, be more nourishing? What do I need in this moment to take care of myself so that I have more capacity to do that, right? When we prioritize our needs, we create greater capacity for ourselves, which is the irony of it all, because we've all bought into this idea that we just power through and we just push through, when really the answer is often to step back and prioritize our needs and maybe slow down a little bit. And then that opens up the capacity for us to get more done. So it's this weird kind of like paradox dichotomy almost, in a way. And so we get really clear on what it is you need, and then we start to work on holding boundaries and setting boundaries, and then communicating out those boundaries and needs to the people around us. A lot of the women I work with, clients I work with, get really frustrated when they feel like a boundary has been crossed. And then we start to unpack that situation, and we realize that the boundary was never actually communicated to the person that crossed it. Because really, a boundary is for us to hold, and then we communicate the expectation of that out, and we ask people to meet that expectation. And so some of the ways that we can actually prioritize ourselves, stand in our leadership as stronger leadership, is by getting really clear on what we need, creating boundaries around that, and then communicating those expectations out. And what that can look like day to day in your business is going back to one of my earlier episodes where I talked about theme days and what your CEO schedule can look like, is actually crafting a schedule for yourself that works for you. Not just a schedule that you've created because you think that's what you should do, right? The current season of life and business I'm in right now, the schedule that works for me is that I only take client calls Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays. And Mondays and Fridays are reserved for bigger picture thinking, flexibility to have the day off, travel to conferences, whatever that looks like. People don't know that until I communicate that. There's different ways I can communicate that. I can communicate that with automated systems where clients can only schedule on my calendar during given time blocks. I cannot respond to communication during set boundary times. People are free to communicate however they want. It's on me to hold that boundary, right? If I have a big client day and Riley's homesick, that's where I may reach out to my partner and see if they have more flexibility. If he has flexibility in his work week to be the default parent during a sick day and I don't. And we navigate that way instead of it just, we both assume, both, not just him, me too, that I'm going to be the parent that stays home because I have the at-home business. But that was a boundary we had to I had to establish, a conversation I had to have with him, and then we navigate that situation by situation, right? Other ways that can show up of you practicing how to determine your needs are creating some like daily, what we would call, I don't know, CEO rituals, CEO rhythms, where you are actually sitting down and asking some of those questions of yourself. Okay, I'm going to take the first 15 minutes of my work block to check in with myself and ask myself the question of what do I need today in order to be successful, be effective, and enjoy the work I have to do. I'm going to honor that and give myself that. Maybe that's a fun show on in the background. Maybe that's some good music. Maybe that's my favorite drink. I'm going to set the tone and the intention then that way, and then I'm going to review what I have coming up. Maybe that's your rhythm and ritual to start, right? These are practical ways to lean into and identify our needs as leaders. But if we can't take care of ourselves, if we can't understand ourselves, if we can't manage our needs and support and nourish our needs, we can't step out and do that to the best of our ability for other people. When we focus on ourselves, it actually creates more clarity, it creates more confidence, it helps us set up systems and practices and patterns and behaviors that are sustainable. And then we layer on that and ripple that out into the business. We layer on that, we lead by example. When I was making a lot of these big shifts for myself behaviorally in my business, I would have some moments of panic. Are my clients going to be upset that I don't respond like within 30 minutes? Are my client, right? And what I really saw was I became a permission slip for my clients that were struggling with the same things. So by me standing in my leadership of clarifying and acknowledging what I needed, being confident in that and taking action on it, it helped my clients who struggle with some of the same things see that it was okay and it was safe to do and that they got to do it too in a way that worked for them. Maybe your situation is different. Maybe it's not clients. Maybe it's a team of people you're leading and you want to create buy-in and create a particular culture. Nothing messes with a team culture more than you saying you want them to act one way and then you acting different. Even with the best intentions, even if you're like, oh, I want you to prioritize family and take time off and sick time's okay, but then they see you not doing that, they are not going to feel safe to make those decisions because their leader isn't making those decisions. So much of this work is about us getting clear on what we need, what we want our organizations, our companies, our businesses to look like. The why, it always comes back to the why. And then being willing to be committed to that and take action on it. And that concept of leading self and then leading others by example. But leading others starts with leading ourselves. Leading in our businesses starts by leading with ourselves. And so many of us right now are so disconnected to our why, disconnected from our why, disconnected from our bodies, disconnected from our needs, right? We've got these big ideas and big visions, but we lose that connection to what keeps us tethered and grounded and nourished. And so when we can regroup, when we can prioritize it, it actually ripples out into everything else. The hot word for the last few years online has been self-care. We are talking about some of that, but it doesn't mean it's a bubble bath every time, right? That's not necessarily what we're talking about. It's about being able to have that conversation with yourself, getting really clear on what you need in the moment and who you are, what you stand for, and then taking action on that in the day to day and showing up and making choices and decisions in alignment with that every day. And there will be times when that's hard. There will be times when you struggle with this. And maybe you don't make decisions in alignment with some of that stuff. It's not about doing it perfectly. It's about having a central point to come back to in ourselves, in our leaderships, to check in with ourselves, check in with our needs. Because when we take care of ourselves, when we prioritize ourselves as the leaders, it helps everyone around us do the same thing. And when we level up, they level up with us. So I encourage you to do some journaling, some thoughts, some thinking around what are your needs? Where are you self-sacrificing? Where do you want to make that shift? And who do you need to call in and ask for support to do that? And I get it, high achiever, go-getter, maybe a little bit of control freak in there. I get it, because I know how hard it is to turn that over. And when we turn over some of that stuff, we have to lean into the idea that it's okay for people to do it differently than we would. But man, is it so beautiful and powerful when we start to really get our needs met both by ourselves and by other people. But I promise you, no one can meet your needs until you start meeting them yourself. And when you do, the ripple out into your life, your joy, your business, your kids. It's just compounding, and it layers and layers and layers. So if you want to keep growing that business, let's take that pause, step back, assess where you can nourish yourself, prioritize yourself, and really commit to the next few months of just working on that while all the other things are going on as well. I would love to hear how it goes. I would love to hear your thoughts. Drop me some comments. Find me on Instagram at the Cait Finn. And I will see you over there.